Welcome to the Power Automate tutorial for beginners. Today I will show you how to create a workflow, first from a template and then completely from scratch. It is important that you listen closely, and I recommend you that you open Power Automate and do the operations with me. Some of you have asked if I could recommend a good Power Automate book, and yes I can. I link to it in the description below, and it will teach you the formulas and how to get a basic understanding to the Power Automate and the Power in general. In this lesson, we will talk about templates, how we can use them in our workflows to make our lives more easy, and how we can use to learn something. So we will go to templates, and then we can see that there's an enormous amount of templates here, like all sorts of Microsoft defined templates. For example, request manager approval for a selected item that is in SharePoint, and we can see all sorts. We can search for them, we can browse categories. Today we will just take the Save Office 365 email attachments to OneDrive for Business, which will save email attachments to OneDrive. Here we will set up our accounts. We can see that we indeed has logged in. Then we'll click Create Flow. First of all, this is an entirely functional flow. It runs automatically and we can edit it here to inspect it. So when I say that we can learn something from all the templates, that is, just open up templates and then you can click here and here, and you can inspect what's going on here, because it is actions here and you can use them to, it's quite easy to understand what's going on, and then we can easily build our own workflow. So first of all, there's a trigger up here, a new email. It will look when a new email arrives in the inbox of our mail, and then we have some advanced options. That's basically just filters. So we can choose that we only want to look at mails from a certain sender. We can have a subject filter, something string to look for in the subject line. And here we can include attachments. Well, we're going to use them down below, so yes please. And we will only look at emails with attachments. That is clever because we will use only the attachments. We don't care about empty emails with no attachments. So that's fine, that's our trigger. Whenever a new email arrives, then we want to do something. What do we want to do? Well, we have an apply to each here. And actually, this action, you can find it as well here to click New Step. And you can either find it in condition, or we can search for it. Apply to each, and we can see there, just try to click it, and now we have another apply to each. So we have one here and one here. However, we will not use this. It was just to show you how we can find them. So let's click delete and open this one up again. We will select an output from previous steps. That is the attachments we got from up here. We can try to delete it, and then we can click here and we can see a dynamic content menu pop-up pops up. And we will of course choose attachment, but we could choose to work with something else like the body or the subject or the sender. However, let's pick the attachments. Then we have a OneDrive activity here, that is create file, and that one we can click on as well. We have three properties. We have the folder path. This one is the root folder of our OneDrive. It will create a folder called email attachments from Flow. Flow was actually the old Power Automate name, so let's just say Power Automate, like this. The file name, that is again one of these dynamic content which we can define ourselves. We can see we can delete it here, and then we can choose a file name. So we could choose, of course, the attachment name like this, and we can choose to add something to it. So we could write something, or we could add another variable to make it more unique. However, let's stick to the name. The content, that is the content of these attachments here. So this one will iterate through each of the attachments and create a file for each one of them. Then we'll have a condition. Whenever we created one file, we'll have this condition. This one will ask this expression is equal to true, then we want to go to yes, otherwise no. What do we want to ask here? We want to ask if the status code is named 409. If that is true, then we go to yes, otherwise we go to no. So this is one, I know this is a bit of a code, but it will be quite infrequent with codes. Power Automate is very low code, no code. So say that this error code will occur, then the error code 419, that is when two processes work on the same file and is therefore locked, and that means that we can't save it. So if that is true, then there's a delay of 30 seconds, and we'll try to create the file again as we did up here. Nothing special going on. So that's the workflow. We could have easily created this one ourselves by just dragging in the actions. And now we learned it by looking at this. We can even see it in function. So click save and then click test. We will just perform the trigger action. We will send a mail to ourselves with an attachment. So click test. In a few seconds you will see that Power Automate will listen to if we send it a mail. That's it. Then we go to our Outlook. I'll send a mail to myself. So click new message. That one will be Anders, that is my email address. The subject, well, is just called test, and I'll just drag in an attachment, that is an Excel file. I love Excel files. I click send, and you'll see it here in the workflow in a few seconds. We can see that we have it here, and then we can go to Power Automate. We can see that our flow ran successfully. So let's inspect our OneDrive and verify that we indeed have saved the file attachment. You can see that this folder is updated a few seconds ago, and boom, there you have it. In this lesson, you learned how to use templates, both for making your life easier and to learn a lot. In this lesson, we will see how we can create a flow from scratch in Microsoft Power Automate. That is very easy. So I go to my OneDrive. I have created an Excel book here. We can open it, and it will consist of a table like this. We will have an ID column, a name column, and an age column. The ID, that's a unique identifier, that's just numbers, integers. Then we have a name column where we have some dog names. We can see that we have some starting with A, then B, C, and so on. Then we have an age, 1 to 11. And now we want to find out in this column, if each of the dog, does that start with an A, then we want to have a yes filled in here. And we want to create that in Power Automate. Also, in the status column afterwards, we want to check if this is an old dog. So that is, if the age is older than 7, then we will have an old dog status here. Let's go create that in Power Automate. So first, let me close this one down. We have it here. So we go to Power Automate. And now when we want to create our flow, we click create. And let's just choose a manually triggered flow. We could of course choose a scheduled flow if we wanted that, or an automated flow. But let's just do it for once. That's just a manually triggered flow. So we can call this dogs automation, and we will manually trigger the flow. Then we click create. And we can see here that our trigger, that's the manual. Then we can add steps to it. We can click new step, and we can choose all sorts of connectors. What we want here is that we want our rows in the Excel table to be listed. So what we find here is, we can see it here actually, but let's search for it because we want to find it if it was some sort of another connector. So we just search for list, rows, present, and a table, like this. You could also find here in the connectors here, Excel Online Business, I have business, but if you have the normal one, just choose this one. So then click here, and now we can see that we have some predefined fields that we can fill out. It even guides us. So the location, well, mine is on my OneDrive. So in this drop down, I choose OneDrive for Business. Also, if we have a SharePoint site, we can choose that one as well. But let's choose OneDrive for Business. Then the document library, that is OneDrive. And now we can select an Excel file through File Browse. We click here. And remember, ours was dog, and it was in the root directory. So we can fill it out here. We can see that we could also have just put it in, like written it out, but it's probably more easy to click here to browse. Then what is important now is that your table is filtered, or actually is created as a table. So we can find it here. I call mine dogs, like this. Then we have some advanced options, and that is just some queries where we want to do some more advanced stuff. We will get back to that in an advanced guide. So just collapse that again. So now we got it here. Then we will have rows one by one, and then we want to do something to it. So we will find an apply to each. An apply to each that will take one row one by one. You can either find it here in the control, or you can search for an apply to each. Let's try to click the control. Here you find the apply to each. We find it here, so we can click it. And now we will want to select an output from previous steps. Well, that is easy. Just put in your mouse in this field, and we can see that we have it here. Here we got the stuff from the list rows present in the table. That's this one. So we want to take something here. And what we want to do is that we want to get the list of the items. That is the value with where we have it. So choose the value list of the items. We can see it here. Then we want to do something. So we take this one by one, and then we will have a condition. We want to have the condition, remember, if the name started with an A, then we want to do something. So we click add an action here, and let's search for condition or find it down here. For best practice, just search for it so you can see how it's done, and we find it here. Then click it. What this does is, again, we will ask a question here, and if the answer to that question is yes, then we go here. If it's no, we go here. What we want to ask if it's the name starts with an A, so we can choose a value here. And we can see again here that we have all these things from the Excel row, and we want to ask about the name. So it's quite convenient. We have the name column here, and that's for the Q and row because we will apply it to each. So we click name, and we will not ask if it's equal to, we will ask if it starts with, and then we just put an A in here. Like this. Then we can, if we find out which doc starts with an A one by one, then we can update the Excel sheet. So what we want to do here is that we want to update a row. So go click yes. So if the name starts with an A, then we want to do something. If no, we won't do something. We could of course also write that the name doesn't start with an A, but let's just stick to the yes. So click add an action. And what we want to do here is that we will find update a row. So search for update a row here, Excel Online. Choose this one, and now we can fill in the information again. So the location, well, that's still OneDrive for Business. The document library, that's still OneDrive. The file, that is the docs. We could of course instead of created these hard-coded values in, we could have created a variable. So if the placement changed, then we could just change it for once in a variable. So the table, that will be docs. And then what's important now, that is the key column and the key value. So we will look at the unique values in our table, that is to identify something, and that is the key column. And we have this unique identifier, that's the idea. So we choose the idea here. And the key value, that is the idea from the list row present. So now we can find it. And now we have identified the row, then we want to do something with that row. And what is that? That is, it starts with an A. We want to update that column in the Q and row. We want to fill something in. We can just say it starts with an A. So now we have created a workflow that will, first we will take all our rows, then we'll take them one by one. We will ask, does the name start with an A? If yes, then we want to update a column. Let's see how that is done. So we click save, then we click test. I'll perform the trigger action. That is just a manually triggered. We can see that we need to sign in into Excel Online. We do that, and we run the flow. Your flow successfully started, then we click done, and we can see here that in a few seconds it will have applied the condition to all our rows. That's it. We could, if we want to check something, we could click this apply to each, and then we can see we have 10 results. That is that the condition has successfully been applied to all of them. When we can click further in, and here we can see that we are in the yes. So the second row that is in the yes. Try to do the fifth. We are still in here, and sorry, we were the false. Here we are in it. The expression result is false, so we have not updated this. That is next. But let's check our Excel sheet in our OneDrive to verify that it has been updated. So that is the dogs. And we can see that we have now updated our Excel sheet. Now it gets a little bit more tricky. However, it's quite easy. We will update the status. So what we do here is that we go back to Power Automate and then we'll click Edit, because we will just update this symbol. You could either create a new workflow or just take this. Well, I think the easiest thing is to take this. And what we do here is that we check the condition. We now want to look at the age. Remember? The age here, we want to look if that is older than 7, then we want to update the status. So instead of looking at the name, then we want to look at the age. And now that's the tricky part. We will make sure that, because when we get it from Excel, that's an object, so that's not an integer. So if we do this, if we say that it is greater than 7, right? Then we will face a problem, because this is an integer and this is an object from Excel. This will not work. So we need to convert this to some sort of an integer or a float. So I'll do a float as decimals. That will apply to if we have the age in decimals, then it will work. So what we need to do here is that we'll need to remember this items apply to each, and then the question mark age, remember that or write it down. You will get used to this. And then we will need to write our first line of code. So click this away and then go to expression. So first we will simply write the expression here and then convert it to a float. And that is quite easy. We'll just say float. You can see it in the intelligence auto completion here. Then parentheses. And then we'll have our expression inside the parentheses. So we'll say items. Then we will have a parentheses more. Then we will say apply underscore to each like this. And then outside the parentheses we will have a question mark and then these heart brackets here. That is the age like this, and that should do. So you will click OK here and we can see that we got our expression in here. And now we will still have the updated row, but instead of the starts with an A, we will simply just move down to the status. Move down to the status and say old dog like this. So now we changed our workflow. We can now work with numbers. So we click save and then we click test. We will run our flow. It runs successfully. In a few seconds, this one will get updated. I can close my docs here so we can open up again. And now we can see that we indeed have ran the successfully workflow. So we go to OneDrive, then we click on docs. And now we'll see that we have updated whenever the age is bigger than 7, then we have updated it. Remember bigger than, so this one is correct. Ruby shouldn't be an old dog. That's how you create a flow from scratch. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get on to the most exciting part of this video. That is automating the UI, which is short for the user interface. I look forward to show you this because this is so cool. The user interface is everything you'll see on your desktop. That means all your applications and browsers. Typically, we want to automate things such as data scraping, working in SAP or other CRM ERP systems. To do so, we need to use the WinAutomation, which is an official Power Automate plugin. If you have not installed and set up WinAutomation, you need to do so. I made a complete walkthrough guide, which you will find a link for in the description below. It's very easy to follow. And by then, we can start the WinAutomation. Just search for it. Search for WinAutomation console. And WinAutomation is an RPA tool. An RPA tool is a tool that can automate all sorts of business processes working on a computer or a server. The rule is everything a human can do, WinAutomation can do. We could either make a new process ourselves, I have made a playlist of how you get started with this new processes, and in this video we will just take a sample process. So let's just choose from the beginner and let's have this send text to Notepad. To start this process from Power Automate, you need to go to Create, take the UI flow, take the desktop app, click Next. We can call it something like WinAutomation sample, and then click Next. Here we can set up some inputs. We don't have any inputs for this process, so let's just skip that. We can record and edit our steps now, as I showed you here in the Power Automate. To do so, we'll just take New Step, choose the WinAutomation, and choose Run WinAutomation. Then we need a process path, and the process path is, it's this path you will see here, which is my processes, then examples, 01 beginner, 01 send text to Notepad. To do so, we will need to type it in. So my processes, then it was examples, 01 beginner, and the process itself, was it 06 send text to Notepad. So you need to type everything in. You can also create a variable for that. Send text to Notepad. This is a really simple example, but it shows you how easily we can work in programs. Now we just click Save here. We don't have any output, so we can just click Next again, and we can test the automation. To do so, it's very important that you don't touch anything, because the computer will now work on, the WinAutomation will now work on your computer. So click Test now, and click Test. Soon the magic will begin. Dum dum dum. Now we can see the process has started, and WinAutomation tells us something. This sample process will now start. This is a message box from WinAutomation. We click OK. Hello, what is your name? Well, my name is Jensen. I'll click OK. This one simulates that it can take input from the user. We click OK. Now we will type in the text here, and we will copy the text, and we will paste it 3 times. So the text has now been selected and copied into the clipboard, and it's been pasted 3 times. So this is a sample of simple application work with WinAutomation in Power Automate. You have now completed the Power Automate tutorial for beginners. To move on, I recommend you click the playlist to the left, which will teach you much more Power Automate. If you rather want to automate the UI with WinAutomation, click the playlist to the right. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get all the upcoming Power Automate videos.